Muki, welcome
Hi.
to Actors Making It.
Thank you.
I'm so
I
excited
feel
to
very
have you.
welcome. I know it's really nice to actually to do something like this. I haven't in a long time and just get to talk about all sorts. So I'm
Yeah,
very much looking
cool.
forward to this.
Well, I'm very grateful for you joining the podcast. Thank you so, so much. For the benefit of our listeners, all three of you, no. For the benefit of our listeners, I have spoken a couple of times about a 21-day self-tape challenge that I did a couple of months ago back
Yes.
in September. And I met
Mhm.
Muki through that. Muki is an extremely talented actress residing in London, UK, who I am sure I'm going to
Yes.
be very long friends with when I move, not when I move over, starting now, but we will actually spend some time together when I move over
It's already
next year.
started.
This is it. So that's how we met. So yes, thank you and welcome. I'm
Thank you
looking
very
forward to
much.
learning all about you and your story and your journey. Um, so let's kick off with tell me why acting.
Ooh, starting off easy. No, acting because I love to tell stories. I love to connect with people. I think there is something about starting conversations through being on stage or being on screen or watching a story that just brings people together and initiates conversation and opens up topics that maybe in other spaces people wouldn't have the opportunity to. Also, it brings joy. Like I just love having fun and connecting with other people on stage or on a set or on screen. Um, and you just know that two people are present within a space and you get to just do that together. That's such a beautiful feeling. And then you have other people watching it, which then just adds to it. You get to draw from that energy. So yeah, I just love expressing myself. I mean, I've performed, I sing, I've been singing for a while, but that was where I kind of started. But I found that like then it was musical theater, and I was like, oh my gosh, you can sing and act at the same time. This is amazing.
Yeah, wow.
Um, and then it was straight acting, um, no musical number to express how upset you are about something that dramatically happened to you. Um, and yeah, I fell in love with the craft. I fell in love with ways in which you could attack a character or figure out what makes their heart beat, what makes them like get up in the morning, what makes them want to move and do things in life. Like that's an exciting journey to make, and then to show that to people is just the cherry on top for me.
Yeah, nice. And what was it? I mean, I guess that's a great understanding of why you do it. What what got you into it? Why did you, what gave you that, oh, I think I want to try that? Did it kind of start from a young age or?
No, I didn't think about acting until I didn't think about acting properly as a job or as a lane that I could step into until maybe about 5 years ago.
Okay.
I did a amateur drama version of Sister Act, and the main character, the person playing the lead, sent me a link for Identity School of Acting that I attended for 3 years. And I didn't really think much about it, but at that point, I just quit my job. So I was trying to figure out what creatively I wanted to do. I knew that I was a creative being, that I needed to do something that I could get my hands into. If I could sing it, if I could write it, if I could do something, but I didn't know what it was. Um, and when I went to that audition for Identity, it was like I met my people. Like in that moment, I said, "This is it. Like this is the thing. This is the space. This is what I want to exist in this more." Um, so I think, yeah, in the last 5 years, that it was that moment, and I said, whether or not I get into this school or whatever, I know that I've now found my starting point, which is acting, um,
Okay.
and then it went from
Yeah,
there.
cool. So you attended an actual school for like to do a full-on degree or?
No, it's a part-time school, so it's more geared more towards those who it's almost like an alternative route to university or doing a full-time degree. So we had like 2 classes a week, 3-hour sessions each. You do showcases and in-house presentations, and you work on different parts of the craft. But it's available for those who are working or who have other jobs, so that you can kind of, whether acting as a hobby to you, whether it's your full-time thing, or whether you're just trying to figure out what you want to do, it's that sort of environment that you can step into. And so that was very handy at the time.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I think being able to study something and be able to work at the same time is very handy, especially in a city like London. It's not it's not cheap, right?
Not at all. I mean, I live at home with my parents still, so, which I am not ashamed about. I feel like sometimes people say that and it's an issue, but I'm really not. But it is expensive, and I think, you'd have to, sometimes there might have to be the other thing that has to occur in order for you to kind of pour into what you enjoy doing.
Of course. Well, I mean, I think, it can take a long time before acting can be a full-time thing and can be the only thing that's providing an income for you. So, living at home, working however many jobs and whatever while you're trying to make it as an actor is pretty standard. So
that's actually the norm. I think sometimes people get the wrong end of the stick when they think, I'm just going to jump into acting, and I'm the optimist. I'm like, yes, let's do this. Go and grab your dreams. Go and go and do things that are going to get you there where you want to be. But there's also the realist in me, which goes, but we live in a world that requires you to have regular income to maintain the things that you want to do. So it's that sort of that push and pull of being a dreamer, but also being a realist, of saying, okay, you've actually also got to sustain life, and that requires a base amount of income.
Oh yeah, I know that all too well.
Ooh,
So talk to me about your dreams then. I was going to say coming to acting later in life, but I don't actually know how old you are. But
I'm 28.
Okay.
I'm not fussed about those things either.
Later in life is not necessarily the right phrase, but I guess it is a little bit later in adult life than obviously a lot of people that are like, I'm going to be an actor and focus on it from a very young age. Once you started looking at that and going, okay, I found my tribe, I found my people, this is what I want to do. What were your dreams? What was your idea of making it when you started on this journey?
In all honesty, I had absolutely no idea what I was stepping into.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time working behind the scenes and trying to figure out, like, okay, so you've got a director, because in my mind it was a very simplistic view of what happens prior to seeing a TV show on screen or something, is that you have a director, you have somebody gives you clothes to wear, someone puts makeup on your face, and then action. But actually it was about kind of, I'm probably not answering your question very well, but I'll get there. I have a long-winded way of landing where I want to land.
That's okay.
But so I was kind of figuring a lot of that stuff out and trying to see what this industry was all about. But in terms of my dreams, I really want to play a superhero. That was my thing. If we're talking about an actual dream as like an actor, as a job, it's I love Marvel, DC, the works. So whenever I saw someone in like a cape, or like they had the cool outfit with the powers and you could pretend to be all magical and stuff, that was right up my street. I think I also, my dream of making it was playing a variety of roles and not being stuck in one lane. I was going to say I was famously quoted, not famously at all, but I was quoted way back when I started at Identity as saying, I don't want to play a slave. I don't want to play the roles that are often sort of pinned on someone who is dark skinned or black. Like, it's just, I want to play a fully formed person who gets to live a normal life, as well as these other hard hitting stories, because there's so much in which I exist in, like my everyday life, and I would love to see that represented. So that was my thing. I didn't want to be I didn't want to be stuck in one lane. I
Mhm.
wanted, that's kind of my dream actually, is to see myself in is as many spaces and then as many places that I can find myself in and make it work.
Do you
And
still, so what you've kind of been along your acting journey now for about 5 years,
mhm.
Identity was what, finished, how long was it, how long ago was this, how long ago was this famous quote?
This was 20 is a famous quote. 2018,
Okay.
I
So do
want
you
to say.
still feel the same way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm seeing it more now. I think I'm believing that I'm more capable of it now. Um, yeah, I'm seeing, especially during the 21 days challenge, actually. I think there was one particular scene we had to do, um, which was a romantic scene. And I think for a very long time in my life, I thought that's not, you don't see people like me doing scenes or films like that, at least representation on my part. But then I was like, no, like I can do this and I am capable of doing this. And so when I did that, I was like, oh, like that kind of opened the door for me, just even if it was just a mentally like opening the door for my mind to say that if a job like this comes to you and you're actually interested in it, do it without hesitation.
Sure.
So
Do
yeah.
you, I mean, kind of touching on that diversity and seeing yourself represented, have you experienced any, negativity is the wrong word, but what's your experience, I suppose, now that you're out there trying to make it as an actress? What has been your experience within that?
Within, yeah. Um, it's surprised me, but I've had a good experience.
Yeah.
Um, personally for myself, when I've walked onto set, I remember one of my very first jobs, I would, carry all of my makeup with me because I'd heard so many horror stories from many of my friends of people of color who have attended multiple jobs and had like a breadth of experience, and had some really awful experiences whilst trying to do their job. So I kind of, it's this weird sort of two things are happening internally where it's like, one, I'm aware of what can happen and does often happen, so I prepare myself for that. But then when I get there, I actually find that people aren't having such a negative or a challenging response to me being there. And it's
Mhm.
certainly gotten better. I think I've had moments of, oh, I use this makeup and I'm getting more confident in telling people like, hey, yeah, that's not my shade. let's just let's just dial it down a bit.
Yeah.
So like I've personally found that from the director to the runners on set to the ADs, every person I've interacted with, I've had relatively positive experiences. I can't really say that there's been a moment where I've felt alienated, but I've certainly walked onto set with that weight or that sort of thought in my mind to say, this could happen, don't be surprised.
Yeah.
So it's a weird space to occupy where it's kind of two things at once.
Yeah, sure. And what about when it comes to actual opportunity or roles from a
or
diversity perspective? Because I'm very conscious that my perspective is a cisgendered white male perspective.
Mm,
I have always kind of felt that British television and the content that comes out of the UK, I've
mm,
always thought it has been quite diverse. When I lived over there and when I watch a lot of, because I love like UK miniseries that come out,
mm.
I always thought, rightly or wrongly, that probably wrongly, that there was quite a lot of representation or a lot of diversity in the content that comes out of the UK.
I Yeah, I would certainly disagree. I think there's
Mm.
um, the content that's come out hasn't been very well balanced in like like every human being has such an experience in life, the way that they move through the world and what they experience, like whether it's relationships or work or whatever. And often what we see on TV, when it comes down to superheroes, when it comes down to the dramas, often, you know, you'll have and I'll speak for Black people, not for Black people, but I will speak as what I've seen of particular characters. It's often down a stereotype. So it's usually the Black kids who are doing drugs, or they're on the bad end, or they're doing something negative, and or it's the best friend, or it's the sort of the funny one, or there's always like a kind of a pocket or a line which they occupy, and any other option of maybe being the leading character, or anything that would kind of put them in front of anybody else isn't a frequent thing that you see.
So diversity then is not just about having representation, as in having a Black actor or an Asian actor, etc. It's more than actually, because you know, once, I guess, what I said before about I always thought that there was diversity, I was thinking about the fact that I was seeing Black people on television, and I was seeing Asian people or Indian people in the programs that I was watching, but I wasn't necessarily equating that to what are the roles that they are playing, and and are they being stereotyped. So I guess what you're saying is diversity is more than just having representation on the screen, but actually what the parts that they are actually playing.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, that kind of ties into the question you asked me before, which was regarding sort of the types of roles that I receive. And I've had a number of roles where I've looked at it and I said to myself, like, I'm a white woman, blonde hair, blue eyes, should play this role.
Right.
It's the name, the name of the character, the description of the character, the way that they're supposed to move through the world. And it's like, if you are really writing this for someone like me, this role doesn't reflect, doesn't sit right. You know, there was one particular one, I think I was playing a police officer, and I mean, these are little things like, oh, and I should say it's 2-in-1 again, where it's both the thoughts that I have about the types of roles that I should play, and what the world or the industry says that I should play, and how these two things interact. And then in somewhere in between, there is you should be free to play all these roles, but it's not quite the case. But there was a particular role where it described this police officer as like, you know, she's strong, she's sexy, she's, you know, she knows how to control the room, she is flirtatious and flamboyant and all of these things. And I sat there and I read this and I just went, am I allowed to play that? Because what I imagine in my head and what I've seen often is not me playing that kind of role. It's often Caucasians. So I just say, okay, like, I mean, I still auditioned for it, didn't get it, which is fine. But that was a challenge for me in seeing certain names. I've asked my agent and said to her, you know, the name of this character really doesn't make sense for someone like me. What's their heritage? Where do they come from? How do they speak? Where were they born? All of these things are so key when you get sent particular roles. And they're not often reflected, and we're asking now for, you know, directors, writers, whoever, to be specific and to be clear. And also the idea that a lot of roles actually don't require skin color for a particular character unless it's a locality, it's a, you know, a certain place or a certain country or a certain culture or whatever. That's when I'd be like, okay, if you're going to have somebody play Nelson Mandela, he's not going to be white. If you're going to have someone play Queen Elizabeth, they're not going to be Asian. It just, like, you know, so playing around with those things at times. But for the most part, there were a lot of characters. I often think of Harry Potter and Hermione Granger. And, you know, the uproar there was when a Black woman goes to play Hermione Granger on stage, when you realize, when you read the books, There wasn't a point in time where it was described that Hermione was white. But people have this picture in their head of what it's supposed to look like. And that's often with a white gaze. And that includes Black people.
Yeah.
And that includes me. Let me speak specifically for myself. What I've seen often is white. And so when I do sometimes I'm a lot different now, in that I've grown and worked through that. But often you receive jobs where you're like, oh, automatically I go, oh yeah, there's a white person in this. And then you have to challenge yourself to say, actually, no, I can play this role. These character traits I can draw out of myself. I can make this person exist through my being.
Yeah.
And that's now the game to play.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I was going to say, I can't imagine what you would, I guess, what you'd have to go through, especially reading those type of roles. And I can't, obviously, as a person of color, but as a homosexual man, I can empathize on some respect from a representation perspective and from a stereotype perspective.
Yeah.
Because for a very long time, I believed that I have to present as a straight male if I want to make it in the industry. But obviously, it's a lot easier for me to be like, okay, well, I'll present as a straight male. You can't go and present. I'm like, I'm white. Hire me, I'm white.
Like, are you okay? Are you okay? I don't know. Am I?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, how are you getting a lot of opportunity now that the industry has kind of picked up and we've had that shift? Because over the last couple of years, there has obviously been there has seemed to be a seismic shift around diversity and inclusion and diverse casting. Have you started to see that change in your own career?
I think in small increments.
Okay.
I think there's moments where things land and I'm like, oh, okay, you certainly aren't what I expected, but I like the sound of this. I like where this character is going. This character seems to have more of a path, of a journey, of a full life. But I think I'd certainly say there's a lot more work to do, because I think, you know, people, and I generalize, but I should specify and say the industry is kind of finding this sort of wave of like, inclusion, diversity, let's just add people to the screen and just, but I would rather you didn't if that character doesn't make sense to be there.
Right.
So I think, yeah, there have been little changes that I think I've recognized. It's a mixture of that and also just being like, send me the part, I'll prove them wrong. It's a bit of a game.
So
yeah.
Are you recognizing it in that you're getting more opportunity to audition?
Well, I would say my agent has been incredible in sending me jobs.
Yeah.
So I've not really seen it from that regard. I think it's been more the type of role it is, the name of the character, their description. A lot, I think a few things have kind of shifted where they were very specific about, I think in the last year, or maybe was it a couple of years, I can't remember when it was now, but I received a role for a guy. And I was like, what? Like,
yeah.
You're way off. Like, not me. But I think that over time they've become more, they've opened it up. I think there's been a bit more of an openness to that character breakdown or that name. And those are the things that I kind of I look out for on top of story. But what does this character, like, who is this character? Why do they exist in this story, and what's their relevance or importance? So I've seen small changes, but I think there's certainly so much more to be done.
Yeah, of course. Is there a concerns? I don't know if concern's the right word. Are you worried that it might be a bit trendy, if that makes sense, in that
Yeah.
that the change or the shift is not as meaningful as it should be, but um, rather there might be changes because that's the moment of time that we're in, as opposed to a true and meaningful change.
I think I say in the beginning, whenever people suddenly notice that we exist beyond certain characters,
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what I thought. I was like, it's a wave. And my dad always says, everything is an opportunity. Whether you like it or not, there is always an opportunity and you use it. So, you surf the wave, so to speak. But I think we as a people, and let me speak for myself, I am recognizing my value in that and I'm going beyond that wave. So it's a case of if you choose to notice, then well done. But I think there is sort of this shift that's happening where people are saying, actually, we're going to do this for ourselves. And if you choose to recognize, that's good for you. But we're going to make this wave more than a wave. It's going to be a consistent thing where, there is more opportunities. And if they don't create it, you write it. So I think there's just that sort of, there's that drive that's gone beyond it just being a trend on Twitter, like hashtag Black people exist. Like it's gone beyond that moment now where it's like, actually, no, we've got to start owning our magic, our being, our existence, and say, these are the roles we want to play, create them. And if the industry picks that up, which I think they're beginning to in their own special way, then we're on it.
Yeah. Are there any actors or actresses that you particularly admire the journey of, that have kind of pushed the boundaries of this, of typecasting and becoming more?
Yes. I say the same person every time, but she never fails to astound me. Viola Davis will forever be queen. I've never seen a woman attack roles the way that she does, with such ferocity, but also there is this vulnerability about her where she shows that it's okay to be ugly on screen. And I don't say she's an ugly person or that she's she's an ugly being, but she makes it messy, and she shows the truth. Especially, I don't know if you've watched How to Get Away with Murder.
What's the first season?
Yeah, there's a lot. But she did something for me on screen that I, again, it's rare for me to see, which was she showed what being a version of a Black woman that people don't get to see. You're often, makeup and hair done, or weave or no weave or whatever you want to do. She took her weave off and was wiping her makeup off. And it was just this beautiful moment of seeing this woman with her braids, and she's wearing whatever, like, robe or whatever in her bedroom. And it was just so raw. And I was like, like I dream for things like that, where it gets to be messy and it gets to be ugly, but in a most beautiful way, an unexpected way, a version of me that is so open and so free. You're uninhibited. You don't feel like you have to kind of cover up. Viola Davis, to me, seems to be the kind of woman who steps on or onto the screen and just says, like, here I am. This is what you're getting. If you like it, great. If not, that's unfortunate for you. Like I love her drive, her ambition, the roles she goes for. I mean, I can't remember the film that she was in with Meryl Streep, but the idea that somebody about the priest who was doing some bad things.
I don't think I've seen it.
I can't remember it. Anyways, she had I think it was like a 12-minute scene or something. She was in it for maximum, I think 12 or 15 minutes. The woman got I think an Oscar for a small role.
Wow.
And ever since I heard that, I went, no role is ever small to me. Your presence, you are part of this entire team of people who are bringing a story together, and your small role has an impact. Your presence does something for this scene, and you can bring everything to this scene. And I admire her. If I meet her one day, I'll probably cry. fangirl the life out of her. She'll be like, please stay away from me. Like, is like distance.
She is a favorite of mine as well. I think she's phenomenal. So speaking of small roles, let's talk about let's talk about your acting experience and your exposure. That wasn't to insinuate that anything that you've worked on has been small, but rather obviously when we're kind of starting out as actors, a lot of the stuff that we tend to work on tend to be small opportunities. So talk to me about the experiences that you've had so far as an actress over the last 5 years of deciding to become an actress, and your journey to getting on set.
Yeah. It kind of started off with like a commercial. I was scared that day. People were telling me to fittings and makeup and all of that, and I was like, oh, this is a lot. The advert is like, what, not even up to 30 seconds, and you hardly see me. But the entire experience of like being in a room and having to know these lines and knowing where the cameras are, and that's, I mean, moving from that into I was a lead for a short film a couple of years ago, my first ever short film, which again was a whole experience of having somebody call you and be like, oh yep, the actor's walking on set, like and just this sort of like, people are acknowledging my presence. This is a lot, but learning like how to connect with every single person on set, because they're all doing a job to create this project. Trying to think of what this is, when people ask me these questions and then I suddenly go blank as to like, have I done anything in my life? I had a role on a show. It's called This Is Going to Hurt. It's based on a book by Adam Kay, which is about junior doctors and basically the hell that they go through. It's specific to the UK and the NHS. And again, that was an unnamed role. So I was an anaesthetist. But that experience, again, was insane. I had lines. I had to learn how to pretend to look like I knew what I was doing. And just...
Was this pre or post the self-tape challenge?
Pre.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that why you look so comfortable in that medical one?
that medical scene haunts me to this day. I've watched back the tape and I'm like, just say the words. Just say the words. Say the words and operate on the damn guy and move on. Like, how many times?
Yeah,
honestly,
your blooper roll of that was quite fun.
A mess. There were more. I'm sure there were more, but I don't think people would have had the time to watch the multiple versions of lack of words and what's the script say versus what does Muki say, and she makes up words. She loves to make up words. But yeah, some of the I guess the smaller roles were like appearances or oh gosh, I'm really trying to think.
We don't have to go through your entire
You don't want my entire CV. You don't want my entire life from beginning to end.
No,
we thought not.
I'm sure it would be very short, but we don't have that amount of time. So obviously, I mean, I'm making an assumption now that the career choice is to be a working actress or actor.
Actor, both. I'm not fussed, but I say actor all the time now.
Okay.
I just
A working acting professional.
Good save.
Do you get a lot of auditions over there? Because for my vision of the UK is that they pump out so much content that there's that you must be inundated with auditions constantly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part of, I think part of that is who you're assigned to and how good they are at getting into the room. But generally, yes, I can say I have auditions every month, and even in the quiet seasons, there's still something, one or two bits that fly around, which is good. So yeah, it is pretty regular on that regard. I think it's a mixture of like having the right people supporting you, but also, yeah, just keeping your eyes peeled, because there's always people writing things, there's always people kind of producing, or that whole networking thing that they talk to us about all the time, of get to know everybody, because you never know who that person might be, or so that's kind of in the mix.
So from an audition perspective, obviously, as we know, you don't always get the role. And in fact, auditioning really is much of the job. How do you personally manage any kind of, let's not use the word rejection, but how do you personally self-moderate your emotions around not getting a part or not hearing back about an audition?
Once I'm out the room, if it's an in-person audition, once I'm out the room, it's done.
Okay.
I think I've kind of taught myself to let it go, because I think again, this is the blessings of having people who have been in the industry longer than I have, to say, hey, like, you're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to have, and a lot of those no's you won't actually hear, but they'll be in the ether. Like, the no will be there without somebody saying something. And so I taught myself to let it go. If I'm in a room, I do what I can at that time, and I do my best. I walk away and I leave it in the room and I get on with my day. Whatever the next thing is, I go and do that. If I'm going to have a coffee, I'm going to go and enjoy that coffee and be like, the audition's done. There's nothing more I can do. Because the influx of self-tapes is, we now audition so much more with self-tapes than we do in person. Once that self-tape has been sent off to my agent, it's forgotten about. Genuinely, I think I've taught myself how to, like, kind of like self-taught memory loss. Where I kind of just say to myself, I forget about the job. Because until it becomes something that is on a contract that says, Muki, you are now contracted to do this job, it's not mine. I've done my part. I've sent the audition. I've worked. I've done my bit. That's gone now, and I need to continue with whatever I'm doing, because life continues. Because I can sit there, and I've had moments where I'm also honest with myself in that, where there's a particular job that comes to you, and you say, oh, I really want this. And I can feel myself kind of holding on to it for a few days and being like, like, this would be so good if I got it. Like, imagine all the things I could do, and the costume and the. But then I say to myself, all right, Muki, put it down, let it go. If it's for you, it will come to you. And when it comes to you, then we can start running with it. It's not mine until it's mine. So yeah, that seems to alleviate some of that pressure, or that feeling of potential rejection, or that, that I'm not good enough or something. And that's natural. Humans, we have doubt all the time.
Yes, we do. Do you have a special way of dealing with that kind of self-doubt and negativity?
I let it run its course. So I'm honest with myself in that moment to say, you're feeling rough, or you're feeling like you're not good enough. But then I also revisit the things that I know people have said to me, and be like, almost like affirmations, things that people have said about me, to me, what I've seen in myself. And I let those kind of speak into, actually, no, you are good enough. And that's what kind of carries me forward out of those spells. But I also am honest in those moments to say, yes, you're feeling doubt right now, and that's okay. We don't sit here, but we let it run its course. Because if you pretend that it's not, you continue building these things up, and then it just explodes. And so yeah, I try to be as honest with myself, whilst also at some point saying, okay, we've got to move on now.
Yeah, sure. Is there what was I going to say? I've lost my train of thought. No, not lost my train of thought. I have the train of thought. I'm not sure how to articulate my question. I know obviously that you are a religious person. Does your faith have a lot to do with how you kind of self-regulate and how you approach
Yeah,
a lot of
I
this?
pray a lot. I pray a lot. I when it comes to auditions and how I even inside and outside of the industry, I release a lot of things to God. That's my way of saying, like, if this is a job for me, or if this is a space for me, or if these are the people I need to be around, then it shall be so. And that's given me a lot of peace, because I think for me, I trust and believe that God knows more than I could ever know. So all I do is move where I'm obedient. I move where I need to be, and when I'm there, it works. Cool. Next thing. Like I don't. Yeah, I'm less worried about what other people think or feel about where I should be, and I trust what God is saying to me, and I'm led by that. I embrace that, and sometimes it's challenging. Sometimes the things that come my way, or the spaces that I occupy, I'm like, oh, this is a lot. But I often know that the challenges where you grow, whether we like it or not, and whether that's a challenge we would. If I could live a life with no challenges, that would be great.
Look, if you could live a life with no challenges, the chances are you probably wouldn't be a particularly well-rounded individual. And I think a lot of people really struggle with or really try to avoid any type of challenge or disrupt in their life, because they feel that they're not going to make through that. But as you've just said, it's those challenges are what make us and allow us to grow into fully rounded individuals that can, obviously, from an acting perspective, we can then take that into the room or onto the set, and
the experience you carry.
Exactly. Do you have a day job, or are you full-time actor?
I
Person
am
who
a
acts.
person actoring. I am now a full-time actor. I quit my job. I used to work at my church for, what was that, a year and a half maybe. But in June this year, I was like, it feels right. I felt like God was calling me out, and I was like, okay, I'm going.
Okay, cool.
And that was wild. But I think this time, because oh gosh, I'm not trying to encourage people to quit their jobs all the time. Please don't do that. Like, be smart and be wise about it. But in the 2 times that I've handed in my notice, it's always been an internal. There's always been a voice that's just said, Muki, this is the time now.
Okay.
And the first time, I was walking into nothing, because I was like, I have no idea where I'm going, but I know it's not here anymore. And then after spending the majority of my savings at the time, I then found my job with my church, and the income was helpful, and that taught me a heck of a lot of other things. And then I was like, okay, no, now I really need to do this. If I say I'm an actor, if I say that this is where I want to go, the path I've been grinding on for so long, bless you, or it's just hilarious just watching you slowly, just like,
I know, yeah, I'm muting myself on purpose.
that was very, very professional. Well done. Not that I expected anything less. Sorry, that sounded a bit sarcastic, but that's not how I meant it.
I didn't take it that way.
Good. Yeah, the second time, it felt right, and so I resigned.
Amazing.
And I said, okay, let's.
So what does being a full-time actor look like for you?
Yeah, it looks like a lot of time that needs to be arranged by me.
Okay.
It's no longer about you know, you have a boss who's telling you you've got to be here, you've got to do these things, then you finish 9 till 5. Those, you know, you've got tasks within the day, you set those tasks for yourself. So if it's, you know, I want to build a certain, or I'm interested in a certain way of or growing my craft, then I join different groups, or I go, you know, 21 days, or I've done other classes, like 3-week intensive classes where it's been about movement and about taking these scripts and just playing and meeting people from all over the world. That was my thing. It was, I have to make sure that I'm spending my time as much as I can, kind of pouring into my creative spirit, which, you know, I also write. I sing, and I try and do as much as possible. So getting on top of life admin is another thing, because taxes are real, people. Taxes are so damn real, and being an adult is not a joke. But I have more time to pour into the things that are important to me. So yeah, it's really been about now managing my own time and not kind of, you know, leaning on what other people would tell me to do.
Yeah. But from I guess from an acting career perspective, so you've just kind of touched on the fact that you work on your craft as much as possible. If you decide to be a full-time actor, then obviously you don't have money coming in unless you act. So how often do you get that opportunity to make money as an actor versus spend money to build your craft?
I think, again, I would say there's a part of where I've been quite lucky, especially over the last year, of having a job almost every month. So there has been some form of income, but I also I'd set myself up where I'd had quite a bit of savings, especially from the pandemic and being in lockdown for a long time. I wasn't spending as much, so I did have stuff on the side where I knew that I could in some ways relatively comfortably move out from having that stream of income that is just generally regular because it's a 9 to 5. But yeah, honestly, it is kind of you kind of need to have a pot of money on the side, which I did have, but it was being added to from the jobs that I was booking or am booking. So and then there's the added thing of, you know, commercials are great because they are literal money pots, so they do help. Randomly, if they decide to renew something after a year and you completely forgotten about something, you're like, oh, hello. So it's like these little surprises, but it's probably not that helpful, to be honest. But it for me, it has been in some ways quite nice, where I have had jobs quite regularly, small bits here and there, but that's
so if somebody was thinking about going, right, I've reached that point in my acting career where I want to give up working at the pub or working at the church or whatever else, what would be the piece of advice that you would give someone that was trying to decide whether they should do that or not?
Make sure that you can cover your bills. It sounds very, very I don't know, regular or boring or just flatlining, but I think we as actors, and I'm generalizing, can be such dreamers. We see the world and we're like, I can see all of these things, but there is a practical and realistic element to it, in that we still need to sustain life whilst dreaming. We need to eat. We need to have multiple roofs, a roof over our heads. God help me, please. But, you know, we need to have a roof over our head. We need to eat. We need sustenance. We need to be able to, you know, get to these auditions or have the equipment that we need. That stuff costs money. And so it's about making sure that you can still sustain the things that are in your life that are valuable to you.
Yeah.
And then go for it. Train, find the places that are going to fill you up, find the courses that are going to better your craft. Spend time watching films or going to the theatre, or watching as much TV as you can, and there's plenty to watch.
Yes, there is.
You're only as strong as the your craft is only as good as your intentions and action. Your intentions need to be active. It can't be you can't wait for someone to come to you and give it to you in a plate, because that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
You have to be active. You have to step up and say, okay, if I'm going to do this, then I am going to, if you write, I am going to hang out with other writers. If you want to work on movement, then you find a movement class, because the internet exists. So it's those things. It's just being very on it.
Yeah, sure. So on that point of being on it and being proactive, we've spoken a little bit about, obviously, that you've got a great agent that's able to get you in the room. Do you seek out opportunity yourself outside of your agent?
I try to. I think, things like Instagram, Twitter, I wouldn't say Facebook so much, but those are the places that I kind of attempt to keep an eye out. And people, this is just, it feels like a blessing, but I have friends who just send me things when they see a job or something, and they say, hey, like, I'm thinking about you in this, like, I think you would be great for this, or I saw this and thought of you. And so there is that sort of network connection where you kind of are all kind of feeding each other, and then you get fed in return. So
yeah, perfect.
It works out quite nicely.
And do you ever get stuck in or fall into the trap of procrastination? And
that can be my middle name. So much time has been wasted doing absolutely nothing. And there are days like that. Again, that's just an honest thing. Like, sometimes rest is just as important, but procrastination really finds me at the best of times, and I'll be scrolling through Instagram for what felt like a minute, but actually it's a few hours later, and I knew that I could have been doing something else. So it's something to be aware of, but also know that it happens to everyone. And if it doesn't,
yes,
you're an alien and you're not human.
I procrastinate so much. I've been off work for 4 weeks today, and I feel like I have achieved nothing in the last 4 weeks.
I'm sure you have. I mean, we're having this talk right now. So.
I'm sure I have. Well, yeah, no, I definitely have done stuff, but I feel like I've definitely fallen into a procrastination trap. I have an audition next weekend for a theatre production, and I've had the sides for a week, and I have not yet started. They're staring at me on my desk right now.
That's all right. And you know what? When you come to it, I am the encourager. I will pep talk till I die.
I did actually watch a 1985 film version of the play yesterday, or not yesterday, the day before yesterday, just so that I could get an understanding of what the story was about, rather than just trying to figure it, because I've never read the play. It's called Lady Windermere's Fan, which is an Oscar Wilde play.
It rings a bell, but not
it had some famous actors in it, actually, but it's from I can't remember the name. You know, the Rose's mother from Titanic. I can't remember her name.
I can't remember her name either, but I see her face clearly.
And Bridget Jones's dad.
What?
Yeah.
I love that.
It was from, like, as I said, from like 1985, so they were like a lot younger. So they don't look exactly, obviously, as I know them, but their voices haven't changed.
It's just their faces have.
Yeah.
In a beautiful way.
Time is a cruel, cruel lady.
I actually have a question for you.
Okay.
I know, role reversal. Whoa. On point. Do you find, I don't know, do you find like it's an important thing to to know the names of actors or producers or directors or things? Like, how do you?
That's a really good question, and I often think to myself, "Fuck!" People say people's names, and I have no idea who they are.
Story of my life, because I can
I-
tell you people's faces stuck in my mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Names.
Faces, voices, names, don't know.
Mm.
And it's really interesting. I was listening to a podcast yesterday with Brett Goldstein. Cool podcast. I like to shout out other people's work. Brett Goldstein, he plays I can't remember his character name, but he's from Ted Lasso. He's such a dreamboat. He's the angry footballer, the one that becomes the coach. Anyway, he has a podcast called Films to be Buried With, and he was in the episode I listened to yesterday. They were talking a lot about how, you know, he researches directors, and the guest was like, yeah, I'm interested in who the director is and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I never think about that stuff. It's not that I don't. That's a lie. It's not that I don't think about it. Like, for example, Ryan Murphy. I love everything that he produces because I just think it's amazing. I would love to work on a Ryan Murphy production. I don't think I have the look for a Ryan Murphy production, but that's by the by. But yeah, no. In answer to your question, do I think it's important? Probably. Do I know everybody? No.
No, and I don't know whether it's an expectation that you should or that we should, but I think I'm trying now, more actively now, to pay attention to who wrote this, or who directed this, or who produced this, or, you know, all of those things. Because I don't know, I think, well, first of all, it's just good memory wise, but also knowing, like, you know, if you're talking about the dreams of like roles that you'd like to play, who are the people who are creating those roles that you want to go to. But I'm so awful at it. And I just think I guess the further I go in my career, the better I'd like to be. But I feel like somebody really important one day will approach me. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Well, I was literally thinking of the fact that you've asked this question is quite interesting, because I was literally thinking about it yesterday as I was listening to Brett's podcast, because of course I was imagining myself as a guest on his podcast. You know, once I've made it, and he's like, yeah, we'll get Danny Barton on here to chat about films that he'd be buried with. And as I was listening to it, I was thinking, fuck, I don't even think that I can answer half these questions. Like I've seen so many films in my life, but I can't even remember the names of films half the time. Like I just don't. And so going back to the original question of, do I think it's important? At the end of the day, like, as far as I'm concerned, I love to act. I love to tell stories, and I love to lose myself in something.
Yeah.
I think it's important when you receive an audition to look at who the director is, look at who the writer is, and do that research, because knowing that and having a look at what they've produced in the past can help to inform potentially how you might portray a character, or etc., because you've got source material to work from. But I don't really, I mean, I've got so many different things going on in my brain to make my life work, that trying to remember all of the different directors and writers and producers and all of these people out there, like, I don't have time for that. I barely remember Kevin's name.
Oh, we love you, Kevin.
Oh, he's so beautiful. He keeps coming up. I think he wants to go for a walk. I said it, and he just looked at me like,
me.
Yeah, he's like, what? Me? Yeah. So yeah, that's my answer to that question. I'm a very long-winded answer because I never get asked questions.
I think in a similar vein, like I mean, when it comes to auditions and prep, I won't go into like massive detail, but I think, you know, I kind of scan those things, but sorry, 1 second, my mother is talking to me. she's asking me if I've prepped and packed stuff for my holiday, because I will probably forget. So I will come back to that. But yeah, I scan through, like, you know, who the casting director, who's the director, who's the writer, producers and stuff like that. But I tend not to do too much digging, because I don't want to, I think it's that, not a fear, but I don't want to get, this is kind of similar to if you've gotten a script of something that's well known, and you know how that performance goes, and then you get that script and they say, you do it your way. But all you can think of in your head is, this is how this person has always done it. So I just say to myself, I will bring my essence to this, take what I can. If you give me reference points because you feel that that's specific to this project, I will obviously take those up and, you know, look through them. But yeah, when it comes to remembering the names, I'm like, you've probably done a lot of great things. I will hopefully remember your name one day. But if I see you, I will be that person. I can see for like a split second. I'll see you next week and I'll be like, oh my God, it's you. No idea of your name, but I remember you. So, you know.
I had a funny, just on names of people, I had a funny personal experience last week. This is completely irrelevant to acting, but it's just a funny story. I was walking locally. I go, obviously I do all my food shopping in Australia. We have a supermarket chain called Coles, similar to a Sainsbury's or a Tesco's. Anyway, and there was this guy that I would see in there all the time, and he would always notice me and smile and be like, oh, hey. And it was always on the escalators. I was going down, he was going up, or vice versa. Anyway, always happened. And I would be like, I have no fucking idea who this man is. But he says hi to me all the time. Now, I can be quite forgetful, like from a name perspective, like, because he's said hi to me quite a few times. So I'm like, so every time now I'm like, I recognize him. So I say hi because he says hi to me. But I'm racking my brains. I'm like, I've got no idea who this man is. Maybe I've spoken to him on some kind of dating app and I don't, or I've met him out and I just don't remember, which is totally something that I would do. Anyway, I saw him in the gym the other day. And then I was with my mate and I said, oh, this guy over here, he says hi to me all the time. I've got no bloody idea who he is. And then I kind of looked at the guy and he's like, oh, hey, how you going? And kind of waved to me. I was like, yeah, hey. Acknowledged him, and then that was that. And I looked at my mate and I was like, no fucking clue, not a clue. Anyway, so we moved to another exercise, and we're I think it was like a chest press or something we're working out. And anyway, this guy comes over and he's like, the first time he's like approached me, he's like, hey, how you going? And I'm like, yeah, I'm really well. I'm really sorry, I don't know who you are. And he's like, I'm really sorry, but if we've met, I can't remember you, and I don't remember your name. I'm really sorry. And he's like, don't we know each other from Wollongong? And I'm like, no, we do not. I've never been to Wollongong. And he's like, oh, you have a spitting image of somebody that I know from Wollongong.
He's been waving at you this entire time,
thinking I'm someone else.
But you know, I applaud your. Sorry, again, not related to acting, but I applaud your bravery for telling somebody that, because that's a scary. Because it's like, oh, like I've seen you this entire, like it's gone past that sort of natural safe point where you can be like,
it's been literally going on for a year since I moved to this suburb of Sydney.
Damn. Yeah, well done. I applaud you for even telling. After this point, I've made up a whole new name for you. At this point, your name is John. But
the funny thing is, the funny thing is now I'm going to see him and now it's going to be that, oh, hey, you're that guy that I don't know that I thought I knew. So we'll
Did you actually ever get his name in the first place?
He did say his name, but of course I have forgotten it.
We love you, stranger, whoever you are.
Thank you for introducing yourself to me.
I love that.
Anyway, I think that's a nice place to leave it. Thank you so much for spending your Thursday evening with me.
Yes, it is Thursday. I don't even know what the days are anymore.
The joy of not having a job to go to. You don't need to know the days.
That's very true. Ain't no need for no, people have a schedule. It's actually important. Don't listen to what I just said.
Correct. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. This was a beautiful chat.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for creating this space where we can just, talk about all things acting.
Thank you. All right, I'll speak to you soon. Enjoy your holiday to Tenerife.
Thank you. I will. I'll speak
Bye.
to you soon. Bye.